So here we have a Renault Kangoo ZE. It's 100% electric. This is a 2012 van. So what I found with this van is when I was driving at slow speeds, like crawling along in traffic, there was a squealing from the back. So what I did was jack the back up. It's nice and easy on the Kangoo because you've got a solid rear axle there. You can put a jack in the middle and get both wheels off the ground at the same time. With the wheels on, spun the wheels, and one side was really stiff. The other side actually it just wouldn't spin at all without an awful lot of force on there. So clearly the brake pads were binding against the disc, and that was the root of the problem. Also, one of the pads was rather thin, and there was quite a lot of brake dust on the wheel trim on the other side, so dead giveaway really. So what I did was take the caliper off, and what it was the piston probably was a bit stiff, but I had to really lever the caliper off. I couldn't get the brake pads out either. I had to use a lever to get the brake pads out. So wound the piston back in. You need a piston winding tool like that to do that. By doing that, that had freed the piston off. The piston now winds in and out nicely. And change the brake pads. It's a shame because the brake pads absolutely nowhere. This is a 50,000 mile Kangoo, by the way, but because in electric you're not using the brakes. These are the original Renault brakes, and yeah, no wear on them at all. That's virtually the same thickness. However, on the other side, one of them was wearing a bit thin because obviously they were squeezed on all the time. But what I found is the brake pads were quite stiff, and it sits in these, I don't know what you call these, shims or whatever. One sits there and one sits there, and then the brake pad slides in that there. But the whole thing was really stiff. So when buying brake pads, I wanted a set of these, and none of them showed these with the picture apart from the Brembo ones. So the Brembo, you do pay quite a lot more for them, but it was worth it to get a set of these. All the other manufacturers, they seem to have a set of bolts, but not a set of those. I could be wrong, it's just maybe they don't show it in the pictures, but it wasn't worth taking the chance. So I got these from Euro Car Parts. They've always got a deal on at the weekend, like a 50 or 60% discount. So these ended up costing about 22 or 24 quid or something. The part number for the Kangoo ZE is 1017455A, and this is a 2012 van. There's also no brake wear indicators as well on this. So yeah, worth paying a bit extra. Other pads, you know, are 15-16 quid, but definitely it's worth paying extra for these because it did make quite a difference. You put these new tin shims in, and the brake pads slid in much better. The whole thing's better. I've taken the caliper off. I've lubricated the sliding pins. They were fine, they weren't rusty anyway, but took them out, put new grease in there, and yeah, the whole thing is working really nicely. And as you can see, it moves freely now. So I've done both sides. While both wheels are off the ground, I'm going to bleed the brake fluid system and put new fluid in the system, because 50% of my wheels are nice and easy to access now, so I might as well do that. But I thought I'd make this video because this is probably going to be a common problem on the electric Kangoo vans, because this is the second time I've seen it now. And I'm not surprised really, because the brakes don't get used. If you're driving an electric van properly, you're hardly touching the brakes. And as you probably know, all your braking is on the front wheels. Very little braking is on the back wheels. So particularly for driving around empty, these hardly get used. You know, I can drive these vans 50-60 miles and I don't touch the brakes at all, apart from when you stopped just to hold the van. So I'm not surprised these get a bit stiff and corrode up, and the piston gets all a bit stiff because of lack of use. So oh, and the other thing is, because this was so stiff, I wouldn't be surprised if that's seriously hampering your range, because it's like driving along with a handbrake on. So I'm not actually getting very good range from this van, so I'm going to get all this done, charge the battery, and I'm going to do a range test and see how much different it is now. I'm expecting it to be significantly different because that wheel was so stiff I couldn't hardly turn it, so it really was like driving around with the handbrake on. So hope that helps someone. Certainly when I'm going to buy brake pads in future, I'm sure I'll just keep buying the Brembo ones. It's worth a little bit extra to get these, because when I use the originals, while these are fine, you know, they're not bent up, they're not corroded, the brake pads were very stiff in these U-shapes, and put the new ones on, it was such a difference. So well worth paying that little bit extra for quality brake pad sets. So I hope that helps, and if your Kangoo ZE has got a slight squeal at low speeds, that is likely to be the problem, just seized rear brakes because of lack of use generally.